Natasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm so excited for our conversation.
I am too. And thank you so much for being here because this is something that I know a lot of listeners are going to enjoy. Could you just quickly introduce yourself to everybody listening so we can get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder and COO of School of Bots. And over the last 7 years, what we have done is become really good at creating essentially what you can think of as like a landing page funnel and email sequences, but inside of a conversation. And so we do this on social media apps like WhatsApp, Instagram, DM, and Messenger. Today, we'll probably talk mostly about Instagram. And over time, since we've been doing this, we've now generated over $60 million in sales, sent close to 80 million messages that we have analyzed and have used as, our data points for everything that we're going to be talking about and sharing today. It's been a fun ride. So that's just a little spiel.
Amazing. When did you, because you said 7 years. Now,
yeah.
I feel like everybody kind of thinks this has been around for 7 minutes. So could you just kind of unpack like 7 years ago, what kind of prompted you to start this or what inspired you?
Absolutely. So our timeline kind of began when Facebook Messenger opened this up. And that was the first time where you could use automated messaging experiences on Facebook Messenger and on like any kind of social media app. So they really, were the genesis of this in a sense. Whereas like chat bots and what we're experiencing now with things like ChatGPT and these interfaces have actually been around since like the 60s or 70s. But now with social media, we're able to, messaging has become such a core part of our daily communication and the way we want to talk to each other and to businesses and all the people in our lives, reach out to new people. And so in 2016, Facebook Messenger created the ability for businesses to do this. And so between that time until about 2021 was when it was just available on Facebook Messenger. And then WhatsApp opened up the ability, and then Instagram DM also opened up the ability. And what we've seen over the last 2 years in particular is while Instagram DM has been around for a bit, the automation side of it really started to pick up. Funny enough, actually, as we started to work with some of the biggest accounts on Instagram that also have large business or like content creator audiences. And so that kind of created a trickle effect amongst, other people finding out about it as well. But I think that really drove a lot of the growth that happened in 2022 and in 2023.
Yeah. And if we break it down to the basics, right? Because you're talking about, message automation and
Yes.
the bots and the chat funnels at a very basic level conceptually. What does this accomplish?
Yes. So at its core, what we focus on is sales and lead generation growth. And what Meta says that they have seen in there's over 600 billion, I think it is now, it might be misspeaking, 600 million or 600 billion messages that are sent between businesses and people every single day across all of their messaging apps. And so when it comes to that process and what we're talking about here, they have talked about 3 pillars that this accomplishes, which is what we've seen as well. There's customer support, of course, so getting DMs that answer questions. There's a sales piece of like, hey, somebody may have a question or they want to know more about the sales process before they buy. And then lead generation of collecting emails, phone numbers, and just other maybe qualifying info about people. So at its core, we primarily focus on the sales and the lead gen aspect because that's just always been our focus as a performance agency. But Meta also sees a big need for, the customer support side of things, which is great too.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you become interested in this? I'm just curious. Like, was this your field of study? Was this something that just interested you early on? I always love a good origin story.
Yes. So I dropped out of or left college, for a nicer word there, in 2017 to pursue creating a marketing agency around this service with my now husband. So I didn't have a whole lot of marketing background. He had some marketing, sales, and business background because he had just been a part of a startup that got acquired and he got to see them go through just all of these really valuable and unique business experiences. So for me going into it, I was a blank slate, no business background, no marketing background really, but was just really curious about this new technology and what it would mean for businesses. So we just dove right into the deep end and had no idea what we were doing for that first year. And at the same time, we traveled. So we did the whole digital nomad thing and we're like, we should go live in Asia and, other places and kind of, isolate ourselves to be able to really focus on this. So it did good and bad in that way. But nonetheless, in that first year, we were able to generate about $100,000 in revenue with all sorts of different clients that we were like exploring this with and just trying to figure out how do we add the most value to businesses with this. So that was kind of how we begun. And then things really started to take off after that first year.
Yeah, I think you kind of rode like with the momentum of, it's kind of this chicken and the egg, right? Because it's like you guys developing a lot of this and gaining popularity at the same time. It's just awesome
Yes.
timing. And okay, so let's dive into sort of, we know kind of like what the chat funnels are, what they're intended to do. Let's just talk about how it gets put into practice and how people might recognize what these are. Maybe they've interacted with them before. So
Sure.
could you just give kind of an example storyline of how someone could use this tool?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the very first point of this, and let's talk about maybe what happens right now without the automation. So then people can also conceptualize, okay, this versus this. So right now, if you, let's say, have a product launch or you're an e-commerce store or you have your services, that you want to be offering, to people, and you're trying to promote them through maybe your link in bio on Instagram or in your link in stories, right now, that is your only option, is sending people over to the link and kind of having to be salesy as well up front to say, hey, I have this thing, I have these services, I want to work with these people, go and check out this link. And the conversion on people actually going over to your page is very low and continues to decrease year after year, because that feature has been out now for 10 years, since 2013. And so it's a little bit outdated, but it's been the only thing that was available until about 2 years ago. And so now the difference between that is from over 8 different ways, 8 different interactions people can have with you on Instagram. One of those being someone commenting a specific word on your post. Now people can receive a first automated message from you and then actually go into a fully automated back and forth conversation. And so in practice, what this might look like is, let's say somebody wanted to listen to this episode on social media. So what we could do is say, okay, we're talking about chat funnels. So let's just use the word chat. You could say, hey, I have this new episode out. Here's a little snippet about it. If you want the full episode, comment the word chat below. Now people are commenting. And so you as a user who's commenting chat will receive a first automated message that might say, hey, thanks for wanting to check out the episode. Before you send people over to the link, which just the difference of giving people a link in their DMs allows over 50% more people to actually go to it because it's in a safe place for them, instead of them having to go to your link in bio, dig it out of there, try to find it, and then have to hopefully save the link before they leave that page. But we can also do now is actually collect emails in the process. And so instead of just saying, hey, here's the link, like, enjoy, we can say, hey, going to pass over the link to you in a second. But if you want to get my next episode, first and be one of the first ones to get it, feel free to drop your email and I'll send it over to you. And through that process is where the magic really starts to happen. And some of the use cases we'll talk about here shortly, I'm sure, is that this allows us to collect 85% or more of people's emails. And that conversion rate is much, much higher than what you would get on a typical landing page, an email newsletter ask, anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's also because they're asking for it. It's as opposed to
permission based.
Kind of,
yes.
I feel like in a weird way, you're kind of like, quote unquote, tricking them into giving you the email. You're holding a carrot right behind the email when it comes to the landing pages. It's just like, come get my thing. But it's cool because you start a conversation more so and say, hey, would you mind giving me your email to do this? It's a little bit more friendly, I find, and more conversational. And that is a little bit more welcoming for someone to offer that than to get hit with, say, a pop-up.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. It's all very permission based throughout the entire experience, like you kind of alluded to. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it as well, and what makes it feel so organic. And the fact that you're able to not have to be as polished in the process like a landing page or an email might be, especially I'm sure in your field and a lot of the people who are listening. It's like, you want to make sure that everything is like buttoned up, in all of your communication. But with DMs and chat, you can be a little bit more casual, which makes it fun and also makes people want to engage with it even more.
Yeah. And I'd love to sort of, what's the word, like myth bust or kind of go through a few things of, okay, so this is automated DMs. How do people not treat it as spam, or how does it not show up as spammy? Because automated DMs feel a little bit, someone could say, well, they'll know it's not me. And that will take away from the experience. What's your response to that?
Absolutely. One thing I want to just share contextual wise is that this is not the same thing as the follow, unfollow, or commenting bots, or even the spam messages I'm sure everybody here has gotten at some point about crypto or other things, in their inbox, people soliciting you for their services. So all of those things that I just mentioned are against Instagram policies, naturally, because they create spam for users and bad experiences. So everything that we're talking about is permission based, which I love that we kind of started with. And at the end of the day, we never try to conceal the fact that this is an automation. And actually, in some states, it's illegal to pretend that an automation is actually a person, such as California. So in order to stay compliant legally, but also still provide a good experience, we treat this like, hey, you're engaging with my likeness. And the fact that this is convenient and also delightful, but speedy, meaning you can do it 24/7. Even if Shannon's not online right now to answer my DM, I can still get that info in her voice that I have come to like, know, and trust, and I want to engage with. And that we have found outweighs any kind of negative sentiment people might have towards automation, or it feeling like spam, or feeling like it's not genuine, or coming from you.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of becoming expectation that there are automations happening around whenever you're dealing with a high volume situation, that we're kind of getting used to that and expecting it, which is also how it can differentiate you to insert yourself in the conversation. And that's a good question. Can you jump in the conversation too? And can you do other things besides the automated messages, like voice notes or videos and stuff like that? Is there more of an expanded way to use it?
Yes. So firstly, you can insert yourself into the automation if you need to, like if something went wrong or if you wanted to add a little bit more context. Usually what's best, and not to go too, techie on everyone, but when it comes to the automation, you do want to let it run first, because it's a back and forth conversation. So once somebody has gone through that, because there's things like automated follow-up and just all these kind of magical things that you don't even have to worry about anymore, and people will go through that experience, it's best to engage with them after they've kind of gone through that, but you can insert yourself at any point in time as well. In terms of the other question that you had around rich media and, how let's say natural and organic can this feel, you can send any kind of media that you want to. So GIFs, images, voice notes. We send a lot of selfie videos sometimes too, and anything like that that would allow you to make this feel, again, like it's a conversation with a friend. Even though it is with a business, we again want to make it a delightful experience for people. And that's one of the ways that we can do that. And when we say specific things in those, or use specific copy in, let's say, the things like the GIFs or the selfie videos, and that can also convert into customers at a higher rate for you as well.
Very true. And then you mentioned, we talked about the spam thing, but is there a lack of favor because you're using this in Instagram? Is there any impact on the algorithm for you if you're using something like this?
It's all a positive uptick. So what happens is there's two things. Is every time you post and you use this, you're going to get more engagement on that post than you would on a post where you're not asking people to comment to get something. And Instagram has created this tool, so it's really easy for people to start those conversations. So they want businesses using this. And in fact, Meta has hired me several times to consult some of their highest spending advertisers on how to leverage this, because businesses have a gazillion and one things going on. And so being able to just see, hey, here's how this is best working and how this can actually serve people better. They see that all consumers are moving towards messaging. And so they want to encourage businesses to do that more and in an easier way. So that's why they have all these ways that you can trigger that initial automated message. So when it comes to that, yes. And then I'm forgetting part of your other question. And I wanted to make sure I touch on that.
Oh, it's fine. I'm also thinking they're keeping people on the platform too. So they're actually favoring it in the algorithm as well.
Oh no, Shan, I actually did lose you.
The more that Instagram and Meta.
Luckily, that was a good opportunity for it. Oh my gosh. So you totally froze for that entire time while you were just replying to me. But it was a good opportunity for it, because I had just asked you to repeat. Can you say what you had just said again, since I didn't catch any of it, unfortunately?
Yes. Yeah. So what I was thinking was, when you said that it was actually an uptick, I completely agree. But also, is there another element to it that they're keeping people on the platform as opposed to the link in bio that redirects? So now you're actually getting them to engage more in the DMs and stay on platform. So I imagine Meta would actually enjoy that.
Yes, exactly right. Because you're able to do everything without having to take them off to another page or even a link that still keeps you inside of the app, but again, doesn't keep you engaging with those native features. So they absolutely love that. And the other kind of side effect of this too is that every time you post using this as your call to action, you're creating a new lead generation asset for yourself, because these posts now, because they have higher engagement and are also using this feature, Meta will show those more in the Explore tab of the platform, as well as in the recommended recommended posts, which for those of you who maybe don't spend as much time on Instagram, posts now get recommended when you're even scrolling through other people's specific feeds or just on your main timeline, your main feed. And so that gives you just more opportunities to show up for people. And that post keeps getting shown months and months and months after you initially posted it, as well as every new piece of content then that you put out with this becomes that same type of asset for you as well. So it's kind of like a compound interest situation where, you're getting the initial engagement, Meta likes that, they want to show that to more people. And then all these assets start to continue to show themselves to other new people in your, pipeline, as well as followers and non-followers over the coming months after you've posted it.
Yeah, it's such a shift in mindset too, because you would think like bots, automation. Yes, it's designed to be easier for me, but at what expense to my audience or what expense to the experience? Absolutely. Or the assumption is that we're somehow sacrificing that personal touch in the name of making it easier on us. And personally, I've always been of the belief that it should always be do what's not scalable until it's not scalable. Do whatever it takes to be as personal and have that personal touch as much as possible, especially if you're in the trust business like we are. Yes. And I think that this is a kind of a magical combination of not losing that trust necessarily, still having that personal touch because everything has your flavor to it, but also being able to do more at scale so you can actually respond, you can actually be reliable, you can build that trust even more.
Absolutely. It's really leveraging that automation so that, like you said, you can take the time to be personable. And people are always surprised when they get responses from us and it is a manual response where they're like, oh my gosh, I just assume, everything's automated. But then we're able to say, hey, because so much is automated, I can actually take the time. I have the time and energy to be able to come in and respond to you manually without that being like me having to sacrifice then an important business task or something else, I need to be doing.
Yeah, you can always build a process around it too. And I know that earlier we mentioned use cases. I would love to unpack a few, maybe client stories or use cases, some other creative ways to use this, because I don't know about you, but whenever I'm thinking of a new process or a new thing, I'm just like, how does it fit into my world? How can I actually use this? Because I think it's like great idea, Natasha. Love the idea. How will I actually use this? And what can it actually do for me? What are some examples you have from your experience?
Absolutely. So our primary focus is helping people who have some kind of information that they can sell online, regardless of what their profession or kind of title is. So whether that is a digital course, whether that is just a free download people can get from you, things like webinars, memberships, subscriptions, especially even if that's how you offer your services. And then also people who sell tangible items online like e-commerce stores. And so when we look at more of the digital side, because I'd imagine that's probably more so what your audience might fall into, is like, even though they're probably providing services, it's either you're collecting leads online, you're able to convert those people. So a couple of the top use cases and highest converting options that we will start a new client with would be, firstly, any kind of free offer that you can give people to get people into the DMs or the door, right? Because that's what's going to allow people to engage with you initially in a way that is low commitment for them in a sense, but they're still, showing interest in a specific topic. And so having a lead magnet that you can lead people to into the DMs for first is going to be the biggest and high priority thing that you can do to get you the best results. Now, after that, because it's a conversation, you can then follow up and find out what they're really looking for. Hey, this lead magnet, this free guide, is great for you. The 5 ways to prepare for tax season, etc. All these different things. But then on the back end, we can now invite them to potentially become a client and qualify them in a way that maybe your current website form might do that, or the way that you might usually do it on a call. And that can now shortcut people so that those who are ready to engage with you and maybe become a customer, a client of yours, can now do that process in the automated DMs, and you can take them to the last step, which might be still to have a call with you or for you to even jump into the DMs to close that client. But ultimately, that is just the starting point. And so it's not about just collecting those emails, which is also valuable for you to keep growing your email list, regardless of what type of business you have, but being able to then get people into the next step as a result of that. So that would be the first use case. And I can speak about a couple other front end ones, but does that all make sense so far to you?
It does. So basically it replaces the go to my link in bio or trying to send them over to a landing page or capturing that through some type of pop-up or opt-in. That they're going to submit the same information, right? Because one thing people always wonder is, well, do I have access to their data? Like, will I be able to email them later? Will I be able to capture their information? Or is this all just done locally in the DMs? And if Instagram goes away tomorrow, do I lose everything?
Yes. So the important thing, the reason why we want to collect emails is so that you do have that, list that you own, right? And at the end of the day, Instagram is not going to, which we kind of spoke about earlier, but just to be super clear, Instagram's not going to ding you for using this type of automation because they created the tool for it. Now, that being said, of course, something could happen where Instagram glitches and, everybody's account somehow gets affected. So being able to collect those emails is super important and valuable for that reason.
Yeah, definitely. So it enables you to do that where it's not just localized, but you're going to be able to capture the emails, and if something goes to the back end, it shares with your system, right?
Yes, exactly. So it'll connect to your email marketing platform, regardless of which platform you're using, as long as it allows you to, and not to get too techy, but if you want to, think about this, if you're already using things like Zapier in your business at all, or if you can upload CSVs to your email marketing platform, which everybody should be able to, then those will be two ways of a couple options that you have to send any of that data you're collecting in the DMs, emails, qualification information, their names, when they engage with you, all that activity can all be uploaded into your CRM or your email marketing platform.
I love it. So even if this is the cool thing is that even if you're not actively selling on Instagram, there's pretty much a use case as to why you could use this. And if you're not actively selling, I think it's even better because it's you're not being salesy in the stories or having to send people over to these other things. You can kind of interact with those who really want that information, and you can filter that out first. And that's what I found so valuable with it is you don't have to feel so salesy. And I was talking to Mel Abraham, also implemented this with me. And we were talking about this, that it's so much easier to talk about our offers on stories and not feel like a sleaze bag talking about yourself or talking about your thing that you're trying to sell, because you're like, no, I'm just telling people about it. And if they want it, they can DM me. And if they don't, they can move on. But like, it is as simple as DM me a word or DM me a number for the episode of the podcast, and then we'll send you exactly what you asked for and nothing more. And we're not going to push you into anything else.
Yeah. And yeah, I love that you mentioned that that's kind of the vibe is it's a little more casual. And as a result, people want to engage with it more. And we not only are going to get more people on the front end, but it also converts so much better on the back end. And if we actually real quick go back to some of the examples and the use cases, if that's okay, is one of the things too that might make sense for your audience is like, hey, let's say I don't have any kind of freebie that I can, give people right now. I don't have a landing page set up or really any emails. And so one of the things you can do is if you're creating content, like Shannon said, which is important regardless of, whether you have something to sell or not right now, just building up that audience, you can also get a little bit creative with those call to actions. So for example, let's say you created a reel on Instagram or some kind of carousel post where you say 5 ways or 5 things to do for XYZ. And you can share, let's say 3 of those things in the post. And then you can say, to get the rest of these tips, just comment tips, and I'll send you the rest of the remaining 2 in the DMs. And so then what can happen is that in a way, you are delivering that inside of the DMs still that follows that psychology and that best practice framework, but you're not having to go and create a whole, freebie, landing page, email sequence, etc. And this still allows you then to be able to lead people into the next step to find out if they could be a good fit for you as a client on the back end. Just an easier alternative for people just in case.